Why, hello. I am Tiara Reed, the owner of Inspire, Engage, and Educate. And I am so excited today. I'm not only by myself, right? I'm with three other amazing women, and we're actually missing one. So, with the Emancipated Educator talk show and podcast, we love to actually amplify the voices of educators and entrepreneurs. And I couldn't think of a better way to make sure that those of us who are heading to ISTE not only know the faces of these women, but know their stories and how they too have become emancipated. So, we have our guests tonight. We have Anne, we have Victoria, and we have Yaritza. And so I do want to tell you guys a little bit. We have a panel session going on ISTE Tuesday, June 27th, and it's called Finding Your People. And what better way to share your people than on the Emancipated Educator? So Anne and I actually met at a conference, and I have been following her on Twitter, and also Yaritza as well, just seeing all of the amazing and incredible things that they had been doing. And as soon as we met, the connection was just infection. I follow everything that they do in any way that I can support. I am there to serve, and they are the same for me. And we also have Victoria, who's joining us tonight. And Victoria is too not only a sister, a friend, but she is too someone that I support any way that I can. And she is a trailblazer, all in our community. Last but not least, we're missing Stephanee. And I want to tell you a little bit about Stephanee. First of all, she had an emergency, so she couldn't be here. But I do want you to know this. Stephanee and I go way back. Not only do we go way back, but Stephanee actually, when I was battling breast cancer, Stephanee was one of the first person that found out. She and I were working together, and the day that I found out, she actually texted me and said, "Did you find out anything? Did you hear from a doctor?" And I told her no news was good news. And sadly, that same day, I had to, contact her and let her know that, I got the news. But from there and even before, she's been nothing but supportive. So I wish her well in her emergency, but I do want you guys to understand that finding your people can happen anywhere, because she and I, we found each other in a district. We taught together, and all of these women at conferences and other job opportunities. So we're going to hop in tonight with Victoria. I would love for you to share a little bit of your journey and tell us about you being an emancipated educator.
Yeah. So, hey, everyone. I am Victoria Thompson. Very excited to be here tonight. I'm coming at you from Orlando, Florida. So, if any of you have been to Disney World or Universal Studios or SeaWorld down here, I am like 20 minutes from all of that. And if you can tell by the background in my office, I'm a big Disney Parks fan. So I started teaching in Charleston, South Carolina. I went to the College of Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina, and my bachelor's degree is in elementary education. And I started teaching 5th and 6th grade math and science there. And I was there for a good bit of time. But what I was finding out really quickly was that it was very challenging for me to find opportunities to lead. And that was a little frustrating, only because I know I didn't want to be an administrator. I know that I wanted to be an instructional coach, but the opportunities were limited. When I thought about going the administrative route, it was very clear that we might have to leave Charleston. And right now, well, not right now, back then, that wasn't a possibility, because even though we were open to moving, it just wasn't something that we were willing to do because of jobs and family and whatnot. So I started looking into various options in order to lead. And that's actually how I started getting on the conference route. So I started presenting at district conferences in South Carolina, and I found out that I really enjoyed it. So my spouse, her name is Courtney, when she actually got the call to move to Seattle because she's in the military. And if any of you are from a military family, you know that sometimes you get a call to move and you don't really have a choice. So we actually ended up moving to the Seattle, Washington area, and we moved in January of 2019. And I figured that with my experience that I was, working in Charleston, South Carolina, and also when I was in Charleston, I was consistently called on to do techie things. showing people how to work Microsoft Teams, showing people how to set up a Schoology room, showing people how to work Power School, turning on a smart board, because I was the youngest person on the hall. So automatically people thought that I knew how to do techie things, but I found out that I was really good at it. And with the move to Seattle, it made perfect sense to at least try to leverage some of that skill into a different type of role. I was very fortunate that a company took a chance on me, and they were actually a Microsoft vendor. So I was put on the marketing team, and I was essentially helping out with marketing to educators and also providing subject matter expert experience for that project. But what I found out was I really miss schools. Even though I liked working for a corporation, I really missed working with schools in a greater capacity. And I was commuting 4 hours round trip because I lived in Tacoma, Washington, and the office was in Redmond. So I decided to go back to schools, and I worked at a private independent school where I was a math educator. And then I also did a lot of STEM integration there. And then after that year, a group of 5 schools in Washington state said, hey, you do really cool stuff at this one school. You want to do it for 5 schools? And I said, yeah, that sounds awesome. So I was the STEM coach, and I drove digital transformation, doing, again, those techie things, but really doing it from an academic and tactical lens. And then Microsoft said, hey, you do really cool stuff for 5 schools. You want to do it for the whole country? And I said, yeah, that sounds even better. So in my previous role at Microsoft, I was an education industry executive, and I just got promoted, which is really exciting. So now I'm a customer success account manager. I used to focus on the whole country. Now my area is Southeastern United States. And essentially the best way that I can describe it is that I'm targeted support for school districts, school administrators, anybody who needs me, I'm there for them. So when I think about emancipation from my lens, it was about figuring out not only who I was, but how I could best provide value and what I really liked to do. I was able to lean into my passion and really drive a really totally different career out of it. Because I think if I were still in South Carolina, I would still be in the classroom. And not that there's anything negative about that, but moving really kind of put a fire in me to say, hey, there's stuff out there that don't exist here, right? Or like it doesn't exist here. So why not explore the possibilities? And why would you settle if the world provides more? So I looked for more, and I found it.
Oh, wow, Victoria. Just listening to you, I've learned so much, and I'm sure everybody who's out there, congratulations, Victoria. Value and passion, absolutely. So as you were talking, it's apparent that you decided to, of course, step out on not only your skills and your abilities, but you took a chance on your talents and understanding the value that you add. So I love hearing how you have come to be who you are. And with that being said, we're going to move on to Yaritza. And I would love just to hear your story. And the reason why we're focusing on the emancipation, because a lot of times people see you, they see the glory, but they don't know the story. We all have steps that we've taken to get to where we are and where we want to actually be. All right. So please join.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yaritza. My experience in education is a little bit different. I've always been encouraged to be an emancipated educator. Attending school in New York City, I've had, I think all of my teachers were Black. Let me start off with that. I think I had only one teacher that wasn't Black, and that was my kindergarten teacher. Other than that, my experience in education has been so empowering to just see people who look like me stand in front of me and say, okay, we're not going to do things this exact way. Even though you have to learn this for whatever particular assessment, we're going to show you a different route and you're going to learn more about yourself. So I taught U.S. history and government for 12 years. I taught at an overage undercredited school. Some people know it as transfer schools, but there are schools for students who are overage. So anywhere between the ages of 16 to 21. In New York State, you have until the age of 21. So these are young adults. I was 21 when I came back to teach. So actually, some of the students that I was teaching was the same age as me. So automatically, my approach had to be different. Similar to Victoria, I studied adolescent urban education as my first master's. My second was in leadership. So I actually did become an assistant principal before just fully joining a consultant team. But I've always I don't know, I've always questioned, right? What's missing in these conversations? What's missing in these resources? Are my students really getting it? Because my students were students who had taken high school twice, right? 8 years of high school. So it was almost like I had to keep asking, what's missing? I can't keep assuming that it's because they just don't understand. I have to make the assumption that they're not making connections because this has nothing to do with them. And so I want to just connect the word emancipated with culturally responsive, because that's what I had to be. I had to really figure out ways that I could integrate who my students were, with also all of my craziness, right? Because I used to have like pop up parties in history. I used to have game days. I used to have Regents Prep because we took assessments, but I did Regents Prep brunch. So we would be at the schools on Sundays. The school would actually pay for us to have brunch, and I would tutor students on Sundays because my students had to work all week. And so it was a way for me to feel liberated, but knowing that my students knew that they could depend on me. So, in being emancipated, what comes to mind? For me, it's total freedom. This idea that regardless of our experiences and the world is on fire and what these lawmakers are saying we should be teaching by, I always felt like I had to go a different route. I felt like if I abided by whatever rules and regulations were created, then I would be letting my students down. And that was more important to me, right? Because think about it. My experience was to be in a classroom with Black educators, and now my students are in a classroom with me as a Black educator and a Latina. And I was just like, all right, listen up. This is how we're going to do things. There's no do now today. Let's listen to music for the first 10 minutes. Get all your feelings out, because guess what? We got Regents Prep. And that's how I would teach. And I realized that my students respected that approach a lot more because it involved them. I acknowledge, yes, you are going through something. Yes, I know we have to deal with this, but I also need you to do something for me, which is I'm going to give you your 20 to 25 minutes to figure out what's wrong. And if we can't solve it today, then after school, we're going to talk about it. But I don't want you with your head down. And I know people have a different approach. They usually say, if the kid has the head down, leave them there. And I go, no, because what you're doing is you're making it okay for students to give up on themselves when everybody else has already. And so my approach was totally different. My experience now as a consultant, I believe I'm the same way. Just that, I just add some fancy words and buzzwords to whatever it is that I'm doing, but it's the same exact thing, right? Who's missing from these conversations? Whose perspectives are we not respecting? And if we know that there's somebody missing from the conversation, what are we going to do to ensure that that person is included the next time? As consultants, I believe that we have more flexibility than a person with a full-time job, because you're able to say no to certain things that a person with a full-time status can't, right? It's your job and your duty to do these certain things. As a consultant, it's almost like, okay, yes, I'm going to do these, but I'm also going to ask these questions. Does it align with my purpose for being here? And does it align with why you chose me to support whatever it is that you're doing, whether if it's an event, whether if it's a job or task? And so because I don't want to keep rambling, y'all know I could talk about this forever. So before I even move on and hand it off to Anne, I just really want those of you listening to really think about what emancipation means for you as an adult, but also what it meant for you as a kid. And if you weren't feeling that sense of freedom and emancipation when you were a kid, think about that feeling whenever it is that you step in front of another student or in front of parents, because you're trying to avoid that trauma that you're already facing, right? And so put yourself in those shoes, and they may not fit. Some may be too big, some may be too small, but we have to do a better job at being empathetic to people's wants and needs.
Oh my goodness, that's hard to follow, right? You said a lot. And you said a lot that needed to be said. And just thinking about how you both have cultivated yourself to into the women that you are and the trailblazers that you are. It all started off with you leaning into your strength and your passion. And as you can tell, you both are very passionate. Victoria, you're passionate about technology and people having that equity and that access. And as you can see, Yaritza is very passionate about the children being seen. Not only the children, I've seen you do this for adults, right? So it's just us being seen, heard, and acknowledged and thought about when it's time to implement rules and regulations, right? So understanding that we're considering everyone when deciding. So as we move on to Anne, I want you guys to understand Anne is somebody that's so special. Yaritza, you are too. Of course, you know that. Yes, you are. But when I think about Anne is like, walking sunshine. It seriously. And I know she is that way to all of us. Just over this week, I've gotten a chance to be in a little group chat with her. And every time she puts something, I'm like, like it's always, sunny. And I'm sure with that, you had to get to that point, right? You had to get to that place where you believed in your infectious creativity, maybe even before others did. So I would love for you to share your story.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Tiara, for having me. I'm so excited to be on this, talking not only what it means to be an emancipated educator, but being on screen with incredible women who I have nothing but respect and love and admiration for. Like, this is an absolute joy. So thank you. And to folks listening in, my name is Anne Cosma. I work as an educator innovation lead at Microsoft, focusing on the Flip product and community. But before that, I'm a former first grade teacher. So maybe a little bit of that crazy vibe and energy is because I worked with very young scholars and I wanted learning to come alive. I wanted the joy of learning and discovering to be so real and so relevant for them that's kind of what I tried to channel into my classroom. So this is actually my 22nd year in education. I'm the daughter of an educator and the sister of an adaptive PE teacher. So education has been something my family has been super passionate about my whole life. But after I left the classroom, I left the first grade classroom because I felt called to help more students by helping more teachers. And so I became what's called an innovation coach, a teacher on special assignment. That's what we call them in the West Coast, a TOSA. So I was a kindergarten through 8th grade innovation and instructional support TOSA in Southern California. And I started describing my job as a teacher helping teachers. But I want to pause for a moment and talk about my time in public education because I saw a comment you put up on screen from our good friend Tanya, who said, strong leaders make a difference. There it is again. Well, strong women, but I had a strong woman who empowered me. And I think that was my journey of becoming and feeling, emancipated as an educator, and the freedom to sort of think outside the box and step outside of my comfort zone and push the boundaries of what it looked like to support students in their journey. So I taught in a school that was surrounded by 3 rival gangs that started targeting our students in the 4th grade. And our principal came in, and she was this dynamic, incredibly visionary woman who said, how are we going to fight for our students? And how are we going to empower them to take a much more participatory role in their education? And that means, changing test scores, and what does engagement look like, and what does attendance look like? And what did we do? We put a device in their hand, and we went 1-to-1 in 2010. And so what we saw was our students as creators, and we helped them know their brain power, their learning journey, that collective experience was something they could use to feel empowered themselves. And that changed everything. It changed everything. So when Victoria mentioned being good at something, I was sort of that teacher that felt empowered by an administrator that said, you're the expert, you know where you're at the beginning of school, and you know where you need to be according to, XYZ by the end of the school year. Get there, and whatever path you need to take to get there. So a strong leader changed everything for me. And when I stepped out of the classroom as a coach, I simply wanted to be a teacher helping teachers. I wanted to help other teachers feel emancipated and empowered and encouraged to actually step outside their comfort zone. So I think I approach with that mindset everything I do, which has led me to the journey of being a connected educator. And I got very involved in the Q organization in California and became a presenter. And also at the time, became part of what's called TOSA Chat way back in the day, which was a super active Voxer and Twitter group, but it was a community of educators, diverse global representation where we actually learned with and from each other. And as I found myself in the role at Microsoft working on Flipgrid, Flip, I just kind of brought that mindset into my role as a teacher helping teachers. And I think for me, my journey has been transformative because of the better together mindset. And I think that's why this idea of finding your people resonates so significantly with me. School is a community, a classroom is a community, a campus is a community. A district is a community, a state is a community, a country, and the world. We're a community of educators seeking to empower and support and emancipate our learners so the world is a better place in the future for everyone. And to me, I mean, this is also something I feel like I could talk forever on, and I want to sort of be mindful of the time and continue the conversation as a group. But when I think about this big idea of being an emancipated educator and finding your people, I think about learning with and learning from each other. And that is not only to think and be challenged about teaching, learning, pedagogy, best practice, but consider other perspectives and broaden and expand hearts and minds in the process. So this is sort of my mindset around this big topic, but I can't wait for us to be together in Philadelphia next week at ISTE and for the session that we're going to have and what it looks like, not only listening to learning from all of you, but also, learning from each other's experience, because I have to say it to wrap it up, better together, right? Oh no, she's frozen for me. Is she frozen for you? Okay, so we'll give this a second.
I thought it was my lack of caffeine kicking in. I thought I started seeing things in slow mo, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
I know, right? It's storming out here in Central Florida, so I'm like, I wonder if it's thunderstorms that's making everything go really slow.
Oh my gosh. Okay, she's trying, but it's still frozen on my end. Tiara, we see you.
Yes,
We see you. Listen, I'm super excited about next week's panel.
Me too.
To be able to just share how effective it is to find your people. And when you find the right people, that'll help to put you in the right places as well. Like I remember being on Twitter a few years ago, and I think I only had like a handful of followers. And then during the pandemic, Gabriel reached out to me. He was another social studies teacher in Texas. And he was like, look, you have a whole bunch of resources. We need them in Texas. Can you share them? And I was like, yeah. And from there, my PLN just grew. So next week's panel, oh my God, I cannot wait. I'm excited. Probably too excited.
All right, I can still see her. Can y'all still see her too? Okay.
I can see and I can hear, but until we get her back, I think that's part of the conversation.
Absolutely. Okay, hopefully I'm not frozen. Hopefully I'm not frozen.
I think this is Oh no, are you there? I was going to say, this just reminds me of one of those real moments we all deal with as educators, right? Like when things go sideways, you keep going. And I always said this to my first grade students, especially when we started using technology in the classroom. What happens if, an announcement happens? What happens if you sneeze? you keep going. Conversations don't stop because something goes sideways. And this is a great example of something with technology, is that the conversation can continue and it will continue. And I think one of the big things that, Tiara is wanting with this conversation is creating a space to listen and learn from each other, because the beauty and the power in that is transformational, right? Yeah. And that's how people begin to feel emancipated in a role. That's how there is encouragement and the feeling that you can step into a new place, or feeling, inspired to maybe go beyond your comfort zone, right?
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I'm looking forward to for our panel next week is it's for everybody. It doesn't matter what you teach, where you live, what you do, what your role is. You can find your people regardless of who you are and what you do. So we're looking to cultivate that conversation and not only have that discussion, but continue that discussion.
So as I'm not sure, for anybody who's listening or watching in, we're just going to jump in because this is what we do. Right, this is what we do, right? This is our show now. Here we go. I was going to say, like, there's been some really great conversations that have already started this week in preparation and anticipation for our ISTE session next week. So we do have a flip group for anybody who wants to answer the question yourself. What does finding your people mean to you? So if you head to flip.com/finding your people, you will find that topic. But Victoria, you started a slow chat on Twitter yesterday. Yes. You want to fill the folks in and let them know how they can join in?
Yeah, that was awesome. We got a lot of engagement on that as well, which is not only great for a slow chat, but great period, especially as we lead up to ISTE. So if you go on Twitter and you search the hashtag Finding Your People ISTE, so that is the hashtag. It is Finding Your People ISTE. At around 3 p.m. Eastern yesterday, I released a series of 4 questions. And essentially the questions were all around what it means to build community, how you build community, what it means to find your people. So please be sure to check that out on Twitter. And some of those questions might pop up in our panel that we do next week at ISTE. Right? Maybe. We'll see.
Yaritza, I know you're heading to another conversation, but I was going to say, as Tiara's getting reconnected again, do you want to share any last thoughts from your perspective?
Well, first and foremost, thank you to everyone that tuned in today. I love all of you. I know you personally. Ya tú sabes que estamos aquí juntas. But I mean, if you know me, then you know how strongly I feel about the power of connections and the power of being transparent with those connections. I feel like a lot of my growth, both professionally and personally, has been because I have people around me that are not afraid to say, Yaritza, you're dead wrong for this. So I'm excited about ISTE, but I think that out of all of my 7 sessions, this is one that I'm looking forward to because it's going to be an authentic conversation about the importance of making connections with folks, and doing so on a level where, hearing a kickback, and doing so on a level where, it's pure respect and love. Tiara, welcome back. So I'm signing off because I have another panel discussion, but thank you so much for having me. Love you all.
See you next week.
Yes.
Oh, and you're on mute.
I said, hey, Tiara, we just kept the show going.
It's the It is all good.
Okay, you guys hear me?
Yes.
And we're still live. So I don't know what happened, guys. First of all, I want to thank you guys for keeping the show going so much. Thank you for everybody who tuned in. I saw Yaritza had to leave. And this is to show you that you have to have tenacity. I don't know what happened with my MacBook, but the iPhone had my back. Thank you guys so much for keeping the show going. See, this is what happens when you find your people. They don't panic. They keep it moving. So, guys, if you want to stay connected, I heard all the great things. We can't wait to see you at ISTE. And please, please, please follow us. Follow me, Tierra Inspires Me. That's on Instagram and LinkedIn. Also follow Victoria. That is Victoria the Tech. That's on Twitter and LinkedIn.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And also Ann. And thank you guys so much. See, it's not what happens to you, it's how you recover. Bye.
Exactly. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. See you soon.